Well, there are a lot of unanswered questions with Andrew. Why did you do the Newsnight interview? So he doesn't listen to people. I think the royals are not used to spending their own money. They like spending other people's money. And Andrew and Sarah Ferguson got used to that. Everything has been provided for them. And I think he just thought he could get away without doing the work that was required.
It wasn't the interviews or even the Epstein scandal that nearly shattered the monarchy. It was what former Prince Andrew was doing behind the scenes, with money, influence, and people the palace never wanted connected to him. And now, as more insiders speak out, a different picture of Andrew is emerging, one the royal family spent decades trying to keep contained. Because when you look closely, you realize Andrew didn't just fall from grace, he almost took the entire institution down with him. And, the most shocking part, the story isn't finished yet. If you're new here and you want more untold royal investigations and stories the palace would rather keep buried, make sure you hit subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know.
Since Andrew has agreed to move out of Royal Lodge, and he said, okay, fine, I'll move out after paying 1 peppercorn a year, which is basically £1 a year. Now they're saying he's not going to move out until October 2026, so he gets a year of free rent.
Andrew's grip on Royal Lodge isn't stubbornness, it's strategy. Because long before the scandals, long before the interviews, long before his name became a global punchline, Andrew secured a contract so airtight that even the monarchy itself can't easily break it. When the lease was first signed, the Crown Estate believed they were making a smart exchange. Andrew would pour up to £10 million into restoring the property, and in return, the rent would be nothing more than a symbolic peppercorn. He'd cover the costs, he'd handle the upkeep, and when the time came for him to leave, he'd be compensated for improvements he funded himself. That was the deal, or at least that's how it looked on paper. But the real Andrew doesn't operate on paper. He operates on pressure. Over the years, the repairs fell behind. Whole sections of the house began aging faster than they should have. But instead of fixing anything, Andrew acted as though the contract protected him from every consequence, as if signing it once was enough to excuse everything he chose not to do afterward. And now, with peeling paint, worn staircases, and collapsing exterior details, the Crown Estate is staring at a problem. Andrew didn't uphold his end of the lease, but the lease still protects him. That's why the palace can't simply tell him to get out. That's why the Crown Estate is stuck in slow motion. And that's why Andrew feels bold enough to push his move-out date all the way to October 2026, turning a luxury home into one final lucrative standoff. Because here's the critical detail the public isn't supposed to forget. If Andrew leaves early, the Crown Estate may owe him compensation for the work he claims he put into the property. If he waits until the very last moment, he maximizes control and minimizes any chance the palace has to negotiate with strength. Put simply, Royal Lodge is Andrew's last bargaining chip, and he's not using it to protect his comfort. He's using it to protect something far more important: his image, his money, and whatever secrets sit behind his financial walls. But the question that keeps resurfacing is the one Andrew refuses to answer. Where was he supposed to get the millions to fund these repairs when he hasn't had a real job in decades? That's where the story takes its next turn, Because Andrew's finances, the offshore accounts, the foreign payments, the hidden income streams, have been a black box for years. And no matter how hard investigators look, they keep running into the same problem. Prince Andrew's money has never made sense. And once you start following the money trail, everything about his behavior at Royal Lodge suddenly becomes much easier to understand.
So how much money does he have right now?
Well, no one knows. I mean, there's this opaqueness about royal finances. I mean, he has offshore accounts. He has, we know, a Chinese bank account. Stuff is paid through nominee accounts. His company accounts aren't audited.
For years, Andrew has played the role of the royal with no income, no job, no salary, no official duties. And yet, somehow, enough money has always appeared when he needed it most. Enough to travel constantly, enough to maintain multiple homes, enough to negotiate private settlements the public never saw coming, and definitely enough to lock in a multi-million-pound lease on a mansion he was never supposed to keep. So where did the money come from? That's where the trail starts twisting. Because every time investigators try to map out Andrew's finances, they hit walls. Offshore accounts, shell companies, unregistered payments, and layers of secrecy so thick that even seasoned auditors admit they can't follow the flow. Payments routed through foreign banks, business deals that appear and disappear, private transfers disguised as gifts, connections to oligarchs, oil tycoons, and power brokers from Kazakhstan to the Middle East, all protected behind a curtain of royal privilege that Andrew assumed would hold forever. And then came Pitch at the Palace. What was sold to the public as a charitable business initiative turned out to be something far more questionable. For years, it quietly took a slice, a 2% cut from investors, while presenting itself as a philanthropic platform. That money wasn't always reinvested in charity. Some of it covered Andrew's overheads, the polite term for living costs he didn't want to pay himself. That was the first real glimpse into how Andrew operated. Build influence, move money quietly, and use charity as a shield. But the most disturbing part isn't the charity. It's the way his financial behavior mirrors the company he kept. Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, Saudi Arabia. Billionaires with complicated backgrounds, power players seeking access, influence brokers who understood exactly what Andrew could offer: proximity, royal legitimacy, a handshake worth more than money. And the gifts, always the gifts. Jewelry, luxury items, private flights, payments routed through people who expected something in return. Every piece of the puzzle points to the same uncomfortable truth. Andrew was earning far more than he ever claimed, just never in ways he could admit publicly. And that's why his finances have never been audited. That's why the palace never pushed for transparency. That's why, even when MPs called for a full register of royal financial interests, Andrew and his daughters refused. Because the moment someone opens the books, everything else opens with it. How he earned it, who paid him, why they paid him, and what he offered in return. Royal Lodge isn't just a home. It's a vault, symbolic and literal, protecting the last piece of Andrew's power. But money wasn't the only thing Andrew was hiding. The company he chose to keep and the scandals that followed would become the turning point, the moment even the palace could no longer shield him. And that part of the story is where everything begins to unravel. For years, Andrew behaved as if nothing could touch him. Warnings were ignored, complaints were dismissed, and whispers about his behavior barely made it past palace walls. Because Andrew wasn't just the Queen's son, he was her favorite, and that protection shaped everything that followed. When his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein first surfaced, the royal response was the same as always:
deny, distance, wait for the storm to pass, and for a while it worked. Andrew assumed he could ride it out. He assumed loyalty would survive anything. He assumed the public would forget, the press would move on, and the palace would close ranks one more time. But then came the Newsnight interview, the moment Andrew decided to speak for himself. Instead of clearing his name, he revealed something far worse, an almost unbelievable lack of awareness, entitlement, and judgment. He contradicted himself. He made excuses no one believed. He acted as though his status should automatically exonerate him. And the world saw it. The palace watched the interview in horror. Advisors reportedly begged him not to do it. Friends called it career suicide. Even longtime supporters felt the ground shift under them. Because the issue wasn't just the scandal, it was Andrew showing the world exactly who he was. Soon after, his royal duties evaporated, his public role vanished, his military affiliations were paused, then stripped away, and the Queen, for the first time in her reign, stepped back from defending him. But even then, Andrew refused to surrender. When the lawsuit from Virginia Giuffre surfaced, he insisted he would fight. He denied everything. He projected confidence. Yet behind closed doors, the palace was panicking. Documents, testimonies, and timelines were piling up, and for the first time, the accusations weren't disappearing into silence. Eventually, a settlement was reached. No admission of guilt, no apology, just money, and another attempt to make the problem disappear without confronting the truth. But the damage was already done, and the more we learn about the protection surrounding Andrew, the clearer it becomes that his downfall wasn't a single collapse. It was the slow, inevitable break of a system built to hide the truth. Andrew didn't build his shield alone. He didn't hide his behavior through genius or strategy. He stayed protected because an entire system was designed to cushion him from reality, long before the public ever learned his name. Inside the monarchy, accountability has never worked the way it does for ordinary people. Problems aren't confronted, they're quietly rerouted. Complaints don't spark investigations, they spark silence. And Andrew grew up inside that bubble, learning early that consequences were for other people. It started with the Queen's unwavering loyalty. She adored him, everyone knew it, and that affection shaped the decisions of the people around her. Advisors, courtiers, diplomats, they all understood one thing: bringing bad news about Andrew was like stepping into a storm. So problems were softened, minimized, or simply buried. When officials warned the palace about Andrew's behavior overseas, the warnings went nowhere. When staff reported red flags, the reports were handled internally, which almost always meant quietly ignored. When expenses skyrocketed during his trade envoy travels, paperwork was softened or lost. And when the scandals began to circle, palace insiders chose protection over confrontation. Even his role as a special envoy was created partly to keep him occupied, a position that allowed him to travel, mingle with billionaires, and build influence networks without the scrutiny other public figures would face. And when questions arose about where the money was going, or why his trips looked suspiciously like private business disguised as diplomacy, those questions were smothered under layers of royal secrecy. This wasn't one person covering for Andrew, it was dozens, possibly hundreds, over decades.
Andrew's fall wasn't sudden, it wasn't shocking, it wasn't unpredictable. It was the slow, inevitable result of a lifetime spent inside a system that protected him, excused him, and insulated him from the consequences everyone else is forced to face. Royal Lodge, the interviews, the scandals, the hidden money, they weren't isolated moments. They were threads of the same fabric, woven over decades, and now unraveling in full view. For the first time, the palace can't clean this up quietly. For the first time, The public is demanding answers. For the first time, Andrew's future no longer depends on privilege, but on pressure. Maybe he keeps Royal Lodge until his lease runs out. Maybe Parliament forces a deeper investigation. Maybe insiders reveal more of what they've seen, heard, or kept buried. Or maybe, for the first time in modern history, the monarchy is forced to confront not just Andrew, but the culture that allowed him to thrive unchecked. Because this isn't simply the downfall of a disgraced prince. It's a mirror held up to an institution that spent decades avoiding its reflection. And the truth is simple. Andrew didn't nearly bring down the monarchy because of what he did, but because of what the monarchy allowed him to become. As more voices come forward and more documents surface, the real story is only beginning. And if the past few years have shown anything, it's that the royal family is no longer in control of the narrative. The public is. So what happens next? Does Andrew lose the mansion? Does more evidence come out? Does the palace finally step in or keep pretending nothing is wrong? Tell me what you think. Drop your thoughts down below, and if you want more deep dives into the untold stories the palace would rather keep hidden, make sure you're subscribed. This story is far from over, and the next chapter could be the biggest one yet.